Welcome to Meet, Act, and Part, a Masonic podcast hosted by Midnight Freemasons Greg Knott, Darin Larners, Todd Creason, and Bill Hostler. The views, opinions and experiences that are expressed by the hosts or guests as individual Freemasons do not reflect the official position of any Grand Lodge, appendant body, or Masonic authority to which the hosts or guests belong. And now on with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Meet, Act, and Part. And we've got a great episode for you tonight. But before we get started, as we always do, let's introduce ourselves. I'm one of your co-hosts, Greg Knott.
And I'm Bill Hostler.
I'm Darin Laners.
So welcome again, everybody. It's been a while since we've all gotten together, but summer, as we speak, and have recorded this, literally ended about an hour ago, Central Time, 8:04, if anybody was wondering. 8:04 Central Time, summer was over. So welcome to fall. So our first fall guest is the Junior Grand Warden of the Grand Lodge of Kansas, Derik Hockett. And Derik, thank you so much for jumping on here tonight. We understand that you actually been to Lodge already today, so appreciate you jumping in here after a Lodge meeting.
Yep, I'm glad to join you guys.
So if you can, Derik, talk a little bit about your Masonic journey, Derik, and what maybe got you interested in Freemasonry.
Originally, what got me started in the Freemasonry, I graduated from college and lived away from where I grew up for 6 or 7 years, and returned home for a better job opportunity, and I was kind of in an interesting place in life. My wife and I, we got married kind of late. We didn't have kids till we were like in our 30s, and so moved home. A lot of my friends and stuff had moved away and on to other things, and so kind of reintegrating back into the community and getting settled back in, and was kind of political views and all that kind of stuff were a little bit different, and trying to find a place to land, a group of guys to associate with. And I was working in the oil and gas industry, and one of my coworkers, he was my control board operator. He was the guy that would call me out in the middle of the night when we had things that needed to be worked on or fixed, and ran across him. And the Masonic Lodge was one of the things that we did annually. Is we did funnel cakes and tater twisters at the county fair. And I ran back into Rusty, and I was like, "Hey, Rusty, I didn't know you were a Mason." Anyway, long story short, he got me kind of pulled in, and that's how the journey started. So it was initiated in November of 2007, took fellowcraft in January of 2008, and was raised to a sublime degree of a Master Mason on Valentine's Day of 2008. And so after that, it was, you start talking to family members, and you start finding out, about, I found out that my uncle was a Mason in California, and then my grandpa was I think he was an entered apprentice in Oklahoma. You start kind of uncovering all of these family histories that you didn't know about. So that was kind of fun, and so that was how I got started in the lodge.
Well, that's great. So I guess I was raised about 5 months before you. So and I was raised in November of 2007. So you and I have been about the same length of time. So I guess with that sort of perspective, I mean, obviously you've jumped into the Grand Lodge line already in Kansas. If you can, tell us about the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Kansas, and maybe how many members there are, and those kinds of things.
Sure. And so that journey kind of into the Grand Lodge line, it started with a phone call, kind of serendipitously. It was past Grandmaster Cole Presley. He called and asked if I would be interested in serving as a district deputy Grandmaster. So that's part of the structure of Kansas, Grand Lodge of Kansas. We have area deputies and district deputies. And Cole selected Most Worshipful Michael Stoops as his selection to get on the Grand Line. And then, of course, Most Worshipful Stoops asked me to be his Grand Senior Deacon. So kind of a cool lineage. Cole was there for me at the beginning when he asked me to be a district deputy, and we share that Grand Lodge lineage. So served a couple of years as a district deputy, unappointed Grand Standard Bearer in 2019, 2-year term as an area deputy. And within the district or the Grand Lodge of Kansas jurisdiction, area and district deputies is kind of where we look. They're the representatives of the Grand Master. They go out to the lodges and serve as his representative, and that's kind of the pool that they look at for membership development. So you get a couple of years to kind of get familiar with the Grand Lodge process, and you get on the email list for where all the Grand Lodge events are around the state, and so you a little more visibility, kind of get a feel for kind of what's going on and that kind of thing. Right now, Kansas stands at I did a little bit of homework beforehand, and as of yesterday evening, we're at 12,184 Master Masons, average age of 66.68 years of age, and we've got 186 lodges.
Great. Darin?
Hey, Derik. I was fortunate enough to meet you at Kansas Masonic-con, so I'm going to just leap right into that, and
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about your impressions. I'll just say I think Alex did a phenomenal job, and it was so heartwarming to see the Grand Line out in support of that event. So I just, from the Grand Lodge perspective, what was your impression? And then I guess personally, what was your impression of Kansas Masonic-con?
So, from Grand Lodge perception, Council of Administration, we absolutely supported it 100%. I've got a few notes about that. We'll get into that a little bit more later on when we talk about just kind of what's going on in the state of Kansas as far as Freemasonry. But personally, for me, man, it was just it was a fire hose. It was so much, not just from the value that we got out of all the presenters, just the actual content of what they presented, but the way Alex did it, the venue, and you nailed it. He did an outstanding job. And maybe that was my first Masonic-con experience, and so my perspective is definitely fresh eyes. And so to hear you, Darin, say that he did an outstanding job. I know you've been to other Masonic-cons and have a different point of reference than I do. It's really, it makes me feel good. Alex does a ton of things for us. Not just as Kansas Lodge of Research. He's a member of the publications committee at a Grand Lodge level. Those Most Worshipful Kellerman, Most Worshipful Stoops, and Alex, they lead the charge as far as social media and everything on our website and all that kind of stuff. They do a ton of work in the background and don't always get recognized for it. But the setup, the technology that he utilized, and they were, absolutely, you've always got a few little minor bugs, but the sum total of all the moving pieces that he had pulled together to make that look the way it looked was outstanding. It was an outstanding representation of the capabilities of Kansas Freemasonry and what Alex can do. Again, the presenters were great. I thought we had to adjust kind of midstream. Jonte Gold, Right Worshipful Jonte, he had a personal medical thing come up. He wasn't able to attend in person. And without missing a beat, we switched him over. We pulled him in remotely, and he was still able to present to the in-person crowd and the online group as well. And you had mentioned, all of our COA officers were there. As a council of administration, we've got a strategic plan. Well, that's one of the things that one of my talking points for a little bit later, but I think that kind of speaks to where we're at as far as looking at the craft and what the craft needs long term, and being open to something different. And boy, howdy, did we really, that was a huge win, not just for Alex and Kansas Lodge of Research, but for Kansas Freemasonry to be able to put that on and kind of show us off a little bit. Like I said, the technology, showing that capability, that's something that from the Grand Lodge level down to the individual lodges, there's a lot of opportunity to learn there as well, for sharing Masonic education. Depending on the lodge, I know not some lodges, that's not their thing, but seeing that set as the example is really cool. And the other thing too, and I'm really thankful for you, Darin, for traveling all that way, and for RJ and Joe and all the presenters that came in. Mike Jarzabek, I'd been on a couple of podcasts with Mike before, and his presentation that he did on Brother James Naismith was really profound. So, and I wanted to recognize you too for that question that you asked about rites of passage and masculinity. That one's kind of been stuck in my head a little bit. Been kicking that around and looking for different ties, and how that ties in the different aspects of Freemasonry. So that's kind of my whole thing on Kansas Masonic-con. Big win for us. We're excited for next year. Absolutely going to pour more support into it. Alex pretty well took that on all his own. We were there to support, but we're definitely going to keep pushing that along, and again, looking forward for next year.
I was so impressed with just how well everything went off, the venue, everything you said. And I know Alex was poor guy, was so stressed out, but yeah, it was, as you said, a big win. It was I think a huge win. I honestly left the Masonic-con thinking to myself, man, I wish I lived in Kansas, because you guys seem to have it going on well there. And I think one of the downfalls of us, Greg and I, being in a jurisdiction like Illinois that's, larger than Kansas, is that I often feel that our Grand Lodge doesn't support educational events or education in general. And it's just kind of, they let us education guys kind of play in the sandbox because they don't want to upset us, because I think they realize if they do, we can rain fury upon them. But at the same time, it's I've never really felt that kind of support from a Grand Line like you guys gave Alex that day, and just seeing that in person, gave me hope, honestly, for a day here in Illinois where we might be able to see that as well. So thank you and your counterparts on the Grand Line for supporting education and supporting that event.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango.
I didn't know if I had it on or what, but anyway, over the years, Kansas has really spearheaded a lot of forward-thinking ideas. We discussed a couple of them that I knew of from years ago, and I hope that they're still in play, because they were very instrumental in Indiana after we adopted them to not only help retention, but actually improve our lodge meetings. And another thing is that I know you guys have, the Kansas Lodge of Research is doing wonderful things. I mean, I see them online and social media. I've heard things, and it seems like it's not just a place where people gather, maybe read a printout of something they found on the internet, or maybe write some. They actually are forward thinking, and they actually do a really good job, from what I gather, of promoting Masonic education within the state of Kansas. Now, and then the question I have is, do you have any ideas of what you would like to promote during your year? Or does Kansas, as a Grand Lodge, have anything else that they're thinking about putting in play in the near future?
So we do. And one of the things that's been and this kind of goes along kind of in tandem kind of with how successful Alex was with Masonic-con. That, and you, Darin, you had kind of recognized the support from the elected Grand Lodge officers, our Council of Administration. Part of our strategic plan that's been in place for a couple of years now, we're really holistically looking at the whole Masonic experience. And we recognize that things like a Masonic-con absolutely play into that. It gives, again, every Brother Mason's journey and set of experiences is his own. And, individual lodges, it's tough to check all those boxes, and we encourage brothers to, go and find that experience. Don't let Freemasonry necessarily happen to you. Be active in that journey. And if you're looking for a lodge that does more education, then hey, we've got this thing called Kansas Lodge of Research. Sign up for that. Or if you're more of the traditional type lodges, we've got Interquest Lodge in Kansas City or Kansas City area. So we recognize that we've got to be open and share that kind of open dialogue and change that culture a little bit. And so to kind of circle back to that question that you asked, Bill, what do we got working, kind of going right now? It kind of fits in with our strategic plan. Our strat plan's got 3 lanes. It's excellence in esoteric work, excellence in membership, and excellence in communication. Along that esoteric lane, education lane, we're looking at doing kind of patterning off of other grand jurisdictions, and we're starting to work on a district education officers to kind of help supplement our grand lecturers. Those guys are a huge part of our education program in Grand Lodge of Kansas, and it spreads them pretty thin. We don't have too many guys out on the western half of the state, and so when it comes time in every year for schools of instruction, it's a little bit of a challenge to get those guys out this way and do it safely. We recognize traveling and driving that's one of the most dangerous things we do, and so we're not only does the district education officer offer more opportunities for the craft. I mean, maybe you don't want to be a grand lecturer, but if you're proficient and you're in the right place, we want to be able to offer that opportunity up so that you can go help put on, a short school, or if a lodge has something specific that they want help with, maybe they don't need a full-blown annual school of instruction, or maybe they don't want to wait that long. We want to be able to put those brothers in place to help fill those needs on a more timely basis. So that's one thing in particular right now that we've kind of got going, filling that education piece as part of the whole experience.
Derik, I'm curious, one of the things I've observed in Grand Lines over the years is in any body, as the line rotates through very quickly, the continuity doesn't survive, the plans, the strategic plans, or whatever the initiatives might be. Do you think in Kansas you're going to be able to sustain that, with the people behind you? Has everybody bought into where that's going to be, implementable more than 1 or 2 years?
So I believe that. I absolutely can speak on my own behalf. I see that kind of not to necessarily call out or put too much emphasis on my own shortcomings, but, there's things that I'm good at. I've definitely got my strong points, but it gives you a little bit of peace of mind when you can be reflective. You slow down and really look at what you're good at, what you're capable of, and understand that I've got other Grand Lodge officers around me who have other strong points, and that we kind of focus those back in on our strategic plan, and we all complement each other because we know that we're all moving in the same direction, and it really adds a lot of comfort. I mean, we've absolutely had to get to a point where we understand we got to be open and honest and with all of our communications. And so we don't, as of right now, we don't have that, this is my program and I got to keep this quiet because I don't want anybody stealing my program. We know that it's going to have continuity, and we know that if the guys behind us don't buy in, then really everything starts to fall apart. And so that kind of plays into the selection process. We do look at guys that have a holistic vision and making sure that, that they're going to support that moving forward. So we've been doing really good I really can't remember exactly when our strat plan kicked off. I want to say it was really got moving in like 2015. It's been in the works for much longer than that. For right now and even into the foreseeable future, I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to maintain that continuity and keep it going. And not only because we feel like we've got guys that support it, but it's produced a lot of dividends for us. There are some things that we were working on a lodge certification program to help with bylaw adherence and things like that. And that one's come with some growing pains. But beyond that, the membership program that they've been working on has paid huge dividends. Our kind of the way we're looking at the esoteric and the education part has paid huge dividends. And I think that's reflected, like in the Masonic-con that we've already talked about. So we've got too many wins under our belt with that strategic plan that was kind of helped lay it out before us and develop to walk away from it anytime soon.
That's great to hear. Hey, I'm curious personally of you, what excites you about Freemasonry today? In other words, we all join, I think, for reasons that evolve over time as we learn more and participate more. But what excites you today? I mean, what would you tell, the neighbor next door that's like, oh, hey, I found you're a Mason. Why would I join?
That's been a real, when they say Masonry is a progressive science, that's man, that one's really been driven home for me, at least in the last 2 years. The Masonic-con thing has been huge. Again, I think that really filled a niche, filled a hole that we didn't know we were missing. So that it's another avenue and another opportunity that adds to the experience. For me personally, traveling the state and getting to know brothers and building relationships, just seeing how that grows and develops, that's exciting for me. But even now, I'm very introverted. And so outside of Freemasonry, pretty tight-lipped, don't have much to say. And this has been kind of an avenue for me to give a common purpose and a common cause. So when I step in that lodge room or I step, into that annual communication for Grand Lodge, I know that all of these brothers are here for the same thing. And it's all good things to talk about, really help kind of get me out of my shell. And I know that there's guys out there who are like me who would benefit from that. And that's the exciting thing for me, just being able to talk freely, not really advertise per se, but when I wear my Grand Lodge polo, or when I've got my wife, bless her heart, she's super, super thoughtful. She's made me a couple of really cool t-shirts, one that's got Euclid's 47th problem and one with a point within a circle, and kind of eye-catching. It's given me opportunities to talk to people about the craft, and let them know that it's definitely not everything you see on YouTube. And so the strat plan is giving us opportunities to really want to talk about Freemasonry. It's helped me be more comfortable and want to share that with anybody I can.
Yeah, so you mentioned advertising, Derik, and we just had talked to some of our brethren in Wisconsin regarding some advertising they're doing up there, and they're doing some really active kind of advertising. I know different jurisdictions have different opinions on that. What, I guess, is your jurisdiction's opinion, and what's your personal opinion on it? My personal opinion is not, I don't have a real strong opinion about it. I see some things on Facebook that are, maybe I wouldn't do that. That's another thing that ties back in with our strategic plan right now. Our publications committee, they're working with a firm, and we're actively developing an outward-facing campaign. So, you have to do it to a certain degree, but you've got to be smart about it. Our foundation,
our Kansas Masonic Foundation, they've employed a third party firm to help them with the advertising. Now, of course, the charitable thing, the charitable wing, and how they go about that, that's absolutely separate from Grand Lodge. But our foundation has done a pretty good job working with their third party advertising, because we do a matching funds program. Each lodge in the jurisdiction of Kansas has the ability to reach out to our foundation and have donations. They're allowed $2,500 a year, and so they can have request matching donations. So if they want to give $500 to the senior class, they can do $500 and then ask for a match from our foundation. And then the foundation has a little information sheet that we fill out with that, and then they give it back to their PR firm, and then the PR firm kind of elevates that, does some things on social media and local newspapers to help just kind of show the charitable side and the good work. So I don't know what the time frame is on our outward facing campaign, but it's coming pretty quick.
I think especially in today's world, we really have to kind of think about doing that sort of outward reaching advertising. And I know there are probably some guys who will hear this in harumph, but at the end of the day, we're essentially having to compete with a lot of things to get the attention of men that would be good Masons. So I think, twofold, just because we're advertising doesn't get lodges off the hook for doing proper investigations, guarding the West Gate, doing all
Agreed.
of that. But I think we really need to, especially, you mentioned that your average age is 66.6 years. So, maybe is it not 66.6, but 66. And, now somebody's going to listen to this and say, I knew they're devil worshippers. They use 666, but anyway, my point is that we, in order to reach the Gen Zs, the millennials, even guys that are Gen Xers like myself, to get them into the craft, we can no longer rely on just, sitting in our lodge and not doing anything and waiting for the masses to come to us. We have to kind of grab the bull by the horns and, control the narrative. And I just wrote an article kind of along the similar lines that, we're essentially, we're doing these things and they're not really garnering, pancake breakfasts and yeah, they're goodwill for the community and they get your name out. But a lot of lodges, and from personal experience, we're not getting any membership from it. And so the membership we need to kind of look at is targeting specific, audiences to, if they search a certain YouTube search term or something, popping up and having an ad pop up for, Freemasonry or doing things that are proactive and also, helping in doing those ads, helping control the narrative. Like you said, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of things that don't portray us in a favorable light. So in order to combat that, I think we kind of need to stop being so passive and be more aggressive, for lack of a better term, when it comes to doing this stuff.
No, I totally agree with both of you. Advertising, it can be done in a tasteful way where we're not asking people to become members. You can just say, hey, if you've ever wanted to be part of something bigger, if you ever wanted to be a better person, yada, 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 take a look at us. And if you like what you see, you call this 800 number or just email or visit this website, and we'll talk to you further about what the process is and see if you're still interested. There you're not breaking any of these so-called, to be one, ask one things. It's more just an information thing, just like any other, organization would. The Lions Club doesn't sell anything, but they let people know, hey, we like members. It's just the same thing. But the other thing about it is, too, and we talked about this in Wisconsin, is it's a double-edged sword. We can get as many prospects to come and talk to us as we can handle. But there has to be something in place at the district, local, and Grand Lodge level to keep these lodges feet to the fire and to make sure if they do get a prospect to call them and then if they do come to check things out, to not, put their best foot forward. I mean, you've got the old cranky guy in the corner who decided to wear his shorts and sandals to lodge, and he's, complaining about, well, we still haven't done this or that. And it's sort of like when the very first time I ever visited the Masonic temple I became a master mason at. It was for a dinner that they were going to throw. And this little old man, about 80 years old, come up to me and he, pardon the language, he says, I don't know why in the hell you're joining Freemasonry. It's going to be dead in 5 years. Now, it's like, it didn't faze me because I thought, well, I'll just write it out. But, you get a Gen Z or just somebody who's really not 100% sure of it. You're like, well, yeah, why am I thinking about joining this? But there has to be some kind of education on how to put yourself forward too, I think, and to possibly continue the process.
Yeah, we beat that membership drum, and a lot of lodges, it's like, okay, guys, we hear you. We from a Grand Lodge level, we've got lots of tools, we got lots of ways to help, but what's the experience once you get those folks in the door? Not just first impressions for a meal or an investigative committee discussion, but after bringing brothers in and raising them to that sublime degree of a Master Mason. Take a step back and look at what kind of an experience you're going to provide them, and be honest with yourselves. Be honest from a lodge perspective, and that, because that's the retention piece. That's part of our membership lane that we're putting some emphasis on this year. We're getting through the outward facing campaign and getting that online information request piece nailed down to that point that you brought up a minute ago about, how do we contact them and okay, holding their feet to the fire and making sure that we're returning that request in a timely manner. And then once we get them in, give them that fulfilling Masonic experience and being able to be reflective and say, yeah, I can look at my lodge and I can say, yeah, we're going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to do the best we can.
Yeah, because that's another aspect. I truly don't believe we have a membership problem. We have a retention problem. I've been saying that for decades. And I call it service after the sale.
Sure.
You get a brother, this raises a 1 degree. You set him in a chair at his first stated meeting, and then he just sits there. Nobody talks to him. Everybody's got their little cliques. He might have had the bologna sandwich for supper and threw his paper plate away and then went in there. And then after a few months, he's like, well, nobody's talking to me. Why am I even here? Or if he does bring up an idea, we never done that before. The old cliche, or, well, Grand Lodge wouldn't allow that. And they look at him like he's stupid. And then it's not, after a couple months, he's like, well, if they don't want my suggestions and they don't talk to me, what am I doing here? And so that brother who knocked on the door to ask for admission to the lodge decides just to saunter right outside into the back door and leave, and then he's never coming back. And I think that's almost as important as the membership thing. But, Grand Lodges, they have this, well, we have to get more members. We're not, it's just like the 50s, Eisenhower and president, we still need the same amount of people, and it's just, I just really think that's another aspect that really needs to be tackled.
So, Derik, after you journeyed through to the Grand East and your year, really it's the Grand Lodge's year that you happen to preside over, what do you want to do next in Masonry? What else do you want to accomplish as you look, down the road? Because like you said, it's a progressive science. Where do you personally want to still grow and learn at?
I've been thinking about that a lot. I don't know that I've got a good answer for you. I do know that beyond my term, I'll continue to support our strategic plan. And I also recognize too that there's kind of there's a balance there. I'm just a farm kid from Southwest Kansas, and I understand that titles carry weight and responsibilities, but support our strategic plan and help our grandmasters and help the craft really however they ask me to. It's just how I started. I knew we had district deputies, and I knew they came around once or twice a year. And when I got called and asked to fill that role, really wasn't sure what I was getting into, but I know that somebody wanted to put me to work, and that's what I did. And so I think what comes after, that past grandmaster time, probably going to approach it the same way. Maybe I don't know what that's going to look like, but I know there's going to be people who are going to ask me for help, and I'll fill that role however I can.
Personally, I don't think you're going to have any problems once you leave the East, because usually a lot of times if you stay active, there's always committees to serve on for Grand Lodge. There's other things that you can do, and just maybe, like you said, just mentor other brothers who, need a little encouragement or need, and you might even meet a guy who's on the fence about not staying in, and you could always talk to him and give him your opinion, and hopefully that keeps him in.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that, a past grandmaster can do. And you could even join the Scottish Rite or the Shrine. In fact, there's what was it? The Imperial Potentate for the Shrine a couple of years ago was from Kansas. I think he was up there out in the middle of the prairies.
Yeah, he was a past grandmaster and an Imperial Potentate.
Well, see, there you go. There's another inroad. Grab a fez.
So Derik, what? Let me explain a situation. So when I came out to visit the lovely state of Kansas for the Masonic-con, we stayed with a friend of my wife's and her husband. And her husband, I think, would make an excellent Mason. And he seemed very interested in what I was doing. So what would your elevator pitch be to him, or maybe any other potential Freemason out there in your state? What would you tell them, or what, if you had 30 seconds or a minute in an elevator, what would you say to them if they asked about Kansas Freemasonry?
Yeah, Alex Powers, he gave a presentation kind of around this at our Leadership Academy last weekend. Kind of talked about being an ambassador of the craft. We're all ambassadors for Freemasonry, and that I kind of look at those situations definitely as opportunities, kind of subjectively, depending on how they ask the question and maybe how well I know and what the relationship is. Maybe it's somebody I don't know. I always just try to tell people that it's an opportunity to slow down and be able to take lessons from the world in a structured way that just kind of opens your eyes. And I always try to stress that piece about slowing down. Sometimes I'll talk about being able to come to a lodge meeting and just be present, be reverent, respect that space, because modern culture, modern lifestyle, we don't really encourage that time to slow down. And I see that reflected in kind of attendance and how we look at our individual lodge meetings and that kind of thing. I'm too busy. I've got 100 things going on. I've got this and I got that and we busy ourselves into a frenzy, into anxiety and all kinds of other bad things. And that's probably the most meaningful thing for me is that's my routine, and that's my opportunity to slow down and be reflective, internally, and taking the Masonic lessons and then applying them out to the world. And that it's the phrase safe space, that's a little cliche, and that maybe that means different things to different people. But for me, that's kind of what lodge meetings are. And then of course the fellowship piece. I tell men that, being a Freemason and a member of my lodge and a member of the Grand Lodge of Kansas has given me the opportunity to meet so many other good men that have made me better in small and big ways. So that's kind of my elevator pitch. I try to talk about the slowdown, the opportunity to be slow and reflective and reverent, and talk about all the good men that have helped me along this journey.
Derik, I 100% agree with what you just said. And it was interesting. I had a conversation last night with someone at a work meeting, and somehow we got on the topic of COVID, but more importantly, how after coming through COVID, we just looked at things differently. And, and it sort of relates to what you're saying there, slow down and take some time and look around. And again, I think Freemasonry is that perfect opportunity for people to do that. One, if they will allow themselves the opportunity to join and experience it. Secondly, if a lodge will support that, opportunity not only for the new member, but for themselves as well. We have the built-in system already in place with the morals and things we believe in if we just slow down and contemplate. And Derik, I think one of the things you mentioned too was all the great brothers you've met everywhere. And for me, that's I think maybe the number one benefit of it and everything else that comes with it. But you just, you hear their stories and you sit around the dinner table or whatever, maybe before or after the lodge, and you just hear their stories because it helps you reflect and you learn something at the same time. And I think one of the most powerful things we offer is that intergenerational, opportunity to talk to brothers older than you and younger than you and hear their perspectives on what's going on. And I'd just be curious, did COVID, take all the politics stuff out of it, but do you think that has shaped any of your thinking on, some of the slowing down and enjoying and just taking time for yourself?
It has to have had a little bit. We were pretty fortunate. The county where my home lodge is, population density is pretty low out here in Southwest Kansas. COVID kind of came in a little bit late. We had a little bit of latitude as far as how we ran our business of the lodge, and we were able to stay open maybe a little bit longer in comparison to other jurisdictions. Eventually, we did get to a point where we were locked down at the height, and then once things kind of settled down, we were able to open back up. I think the experience in Kansas was maybe a little different, and I'll kind of brag on Alex Powers a little bit more on our Lodge of Research. Alex did a really good job throughout the pandemic of doing. We had a 9 p.m. toast on Fridays. We did a lot of other things via Zoom to kind of keep, even though, you weren't at your local lodge meeting, we were doing things as from a fellowship perspective as Kansas Masons. And I think the biggest thing from the pandemic still is a little bit of, I guess you could just call it the hangover. I think we're still trying to get out of that. Maybe it was too much of a slowdown. Maybe that's one way to look at it. And so we're kind of getting picked back up. But definitely thankful for that change in perspective. So then that's still kind of dynamic for me. I think we're going to be, it's a historic time, good, bad, or indifferent. We've lived through something that'll be in recorded history for a very long time. Ask me again next year what I think about all that.
Will do, because we're going to have you back at some point too. We're I guess getting long in our hour here. Yeah, you're coming back. I mean, actually, you're one of our. You verified that you actually listen to this podcast, so that means you you get to come back as a guest.
I do.
But yeah, I think you're right. There's going to be. So that was exciting news when Darin came home and said we actually had a listener. So
Now we're just going to have to figure out who the other 6 listeners are.
Right. I told this to Joe Martinez and one of the other guys from the Masonic Roundtable. I watched some of their podcasts and listened to them too, what they do on Facebook Live. And it's so strange, even with you brothers tonight, the podcast and that technology and kind of what it's done for the culture. Never, with the exception of Brother Laner's, I've never had a chance to shake hands with you brothers or break bread or even meet in person, but hearing your voice and kind of hearing you guys josh with each other and the dynamics of the personalities and how you interact on the podcast, it's you feel like you kind of know them a little bit. And so, and I shared that with Joe Martinez, and it's like, podcasts are so weird. I've never met you guys, but I feel like I kind of know a little bit about you and kind of, who you are. And so it's interesting. It's just interesting to not, to again, be reverent, not overstep that bounds, because you guys still got to get to know me a little bit. But, two real quick before I forget, you guys did some episodes on the 4 cardinal virtues. I really liked those. And then I think you guys did one with Grand Lodge of Wisconsin about some of their strategic plan stuff. That was really helpful for me. I actually shared that podcast with our chairman of our membership committee, and he got some good out of that as well. So you guys are absolutely doing good work as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you. It's amazing what I feel we learned just talking to so many people. I mean, we've done this almost 2 years now. I can't remember what episode, Darin, number this is, but
51.
It gets up there. We were 51. Gosh, we're just really rolling along. But it's been fun. We kid Bill a lot and kid Darin and kid me a lot about, some of our stuff. And then we'll have sometimes text or email offline jabbing each other too for this, that, or the other. Bill, I don't know what his shirt is tonight. Darin and I are from Illinois. We actually work at the University of Illinois. And so I look at Bill's shirt and it's backwards. His says IU and it should say U of I. So, so Big Ten humor. So, but anyway, why don't we, Darin? We'll go around another time and see what else you might have comments or questions for Darin or Derik, and then we'll wrap it up. So, Darin.
I just want to thank Derik again for coming on and taking time to spend with us, especially after going to lodge meeting, talking Freemasonry for another hour or so after that.
Oh, no.
Maybe you've reached your quota for the evening. I don't know, but it was absolute pleasure to meet you at Kansas Masonic-con and look forward to meeting again. And hopefully I can get these 2 knuckleheads to come out next year with me and we can make a road trip out of it, or Bill can drive up from Arkansas and we can all enjoy some Masonic education and fellowship together. But yeah, absolutely, like I said, absolute pleasure meeting you. I had a wonderful time, wonderful experience, and you guys are, once again, I think you're doing wonderful things there in Kansas. So my hat's off to you. And like I said, you're making me want to become a Kansas Freemason somehow. So maybe I'll have to move that way. We'll see.
We'd be glad to have you.
And Derik, I not only want to thank you for joining us on our show tonight, but also thank you for listening to us and passing along the podcast to other brethren. It's things like that. Word of mouth is really how this show grows. And so it's things like this as we really need. And so I want to thank you for that. And I'm really glad to talk, because I've heard so many good things about Kansas Freemasonry in the last few years that I was kind of curious of what you guys do, and I'm really glad to see that it's going forward, and I just hope it continues to go on. And I almost made it out there to Kansas Masonic-con, but something came up at the last minute, as it always seems to do. But yeah, I hope to have you back again really soon, and thank you everybody else for listening to the podcast. And remember, we also have a Patreon page, and we could use your help. These things don't pay for themselves. So I'll shake the tin cup, and as we go by, the offering plate. But Just thank you very much, and I hope to see you again on here really soon.
Well, Derik, let me just wrap it up again by saying thank you. Thank you to the Grand Lodge of Kansas for all the great initiatives you got going. That strategic plan sounds awesome. The fact that not only you put it together, but now through successive, changes of leadership, you still got it going. And that's really what's important. It's never about one individual per se. It is about the craft at large. So really appreciate you being a listener, and would love to meet you sometime. I drove through the length of Kansas this summer. I went to New Mexico, and actually I'm going back that other direction. I'm going back in 2 weeks, so I'll wave at you as I come through the state of Kansas. Well, Derik, thank you again sincerely for joining us. So, and thank you to all of our listeners, and we appreciate you tuning in to Meet, Act, and Part. And until then, we'll see you down the road.
Thank you for listening to Meet, Act, and Part. For more information about our show, visit our website at www.meetactandpart.com. While there, please consider supporting the show by sponsoring us on Patreon. Until we meet again, may we meet, act, and part.